using the Christian faith to condemn sick people to death. That's legal in America. Let's talk about it, y'all. Middle America.
And you ain't black.
The first time ever any...
What are you people? We're Americans. We are Americans indeed. My name is Vincent. This is Middle America. We are not left wing. We are not right wing. We are just right. Shout out to Jaden64. Shout out to my Middle America crew. Facebook.com/America Middle. Shout out to the homies for alerting me to this particular situation. I haven't watched a complete video of this, guys, so I'm kind of going to be winging it. But I did see the title. The title was extremely provocative, so it got my attention for sure. So let's check it out. This is The Hill. This came out, I don't know, recently, but I was told that this is a good thing to watch, so let's watch it and comment. This is The Hill. Something about religious employers. Let's check it out.
Texas has inserted itself into the center of a sexual and reproductive health conversation once again. This time, a U.S. district judge ruled that religious employers do not need to cover HIV prevention drugs in their health plans. 150.
Whoa! Oh my God. Let me rewind that because hold on for a second, guys. Holy shit. We continue.
Texas has inserted itself into the center of a sexual and reproductive health conversation once again. This time, a U.S. district judge ruled that religious employers do not need to cover HIV prevention drugs in their health plans. 150 million American workers enrolled in employer-sponsored healthcare plans stand to be impacted by the ruling, which Judge Reed O'Connor handed down on Wednesday. He sided with a group of Christian conservatives that the requirement under the Affordable Care Act to cover the prophylactic drugs violated their religious freedom, thereby violating the Constitution.
One of the plaintiffs in the case said...
Okay, so there's a prophylactic, something to help prevent or drastically lower the infection transmission for folks with HIV/AIDS. And what's happening is, as the employer, they're saying they shouldn't have to cover that in their insurance packet because it's promoting a lifestyle that they disagree with. So they shouldn't have to do that. That's their argument. Of course, this is first of all, as Tesco's saying, HIV isn't exclusively for gays. Now, we will talk about the transmission rate of infection for men who have sex with men, because I do believe that it's grossly underreported. But you guys know how I get down. I don't care about being politically correct or any of that. I'm just going to see the truth as I see it. But this is mind-boggling to me that this is even possibly legal. So I can decline to cover you in my insurance packet to protect you from a potentially fatal disease. People still die of AIDS. I know people think that, because Magic Johnson's running around or whatever, that people that we've got like a cure for AIDS. It's a casual thing now. People are still dying of AIDS, especially in a post-COVID world. It's even more important, more than ever, actually, for folks not to catch HIV. HIV, as you know, is a human immunodeficiency virus, which turns into AIDS, which is acquired when you acquire acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. So, obviously, COVID being a respiratory situation in the context of HIV, it's almost even more fatal, considering that being the case. the topic is that there are Christian, I'm assuming these are Christian employers who went all the way to the Supreme Court of the state of Texas, apparently, to argue that they should not have to cover prophylactics or HIV preventative treatments for their gay employees because that is promoting a lifestyle that their religion disagrees with. Holy shit. We continue.
He was against paying for a health insurance plan for his employees that covered HIV drugs because they, quote, facilitate or encourage homosexual behavior, which is contrary to the doctor's sincere religious beliefs. The ruling.
No, they do not facilitate and encourage homosexual behavior. It facilitates protecting the lives of folks who would engage in obviously dangerous behavior. But the two are not the same thing. The two are not the same thing. I wonder if these folks believe that their gay employees will now not engage in activity like men having sex with men, which is known to increase exponentially, and I'll show you guys in a moment the chances of them contracting said virus, and then the horrific ramifications of that if they are too poor to be able to afford these, I am assuming, extremely expensive medications. Now, look, guys, like I said, I'm going to be 100% real here. Here we go. This is the Centers for Disease Control, okay? And they're saying, and this is the most recent report that came out, gay, bisexual, and other men who reported male-to-male sexual contact are the population most affected by HIV. You see right there, as of last year, men who have sex with men account for 68% of new cases of HIV transmission. And then if you look at the percentage of estimated percentage of gay men in America, particularly men who have sex with men, you can see here that the number is any range between 6.4 and 4.9%. You have some that have it at as low as 3.9%. So my point is, you've got 5% of the population who is being afflicted at a rate of 68%. So if we put that out in the general population, you're talking about tens of millions of people a year if we did that per capita between the heterosexual population in America. So my point is, we know that men having sex with men doesn't automatically cause AIDS, but we also have to say that the numbers dictate that men who have sex with men are way more likely to be at risk of AIDS transmission than otherwise. That's what the cold data tells us. So it is particularly cruel to deny the demographic of people those drugs when they are clearly in the most need of said drugs. And this is legal in America. You can say that the group most likely to contract this extremely dangerous still disease in the context of COVID-19, which is a respiratory ailment. You're trying to tell me that there shouldn't be a law that says you have to provide this? We all know that HIV is not exclusively a gay male disease. But these employers also know that those individuals are more likely to contract the AIDS virus than anybody else, mathematically speaking, and it's been that way since AIDS was introduced to this country. We know that. This to me, like when you talk about the Constitution and things of that nature, where you have to say there are holes in the system, this is one of those holes. Now, Rob is the white dude is a libertarian, so I'm assuming that he's gonna I'm assuming he's gonna allow for this because this is libertarianism, and I'm sure if you go by the letter of the law of the Constitution, these people are gonna win. But it's morally reprehensible that this happens. Unbelievable. We continue.
Will most likely be appealed by the federal government. So I think we're going to have another debate on our hands on this one.
I'm surprised by that, Robbie.
This shouldn't be a debate. How is this a debate? Were we really here You could die. It's more important than ever that folks get these kinds of medications. They're not going to stop. There's a certain culture and a subculture that's not going to stop. We all know it. That means if we have that knowledge, we should double and triply not only make sure that every employer has to provide those, but that we also work on cutting the cost of those specific kinds of drugs for people in general who do not have gainful employment so as to pay for insurance in the first place. That should be the trajectory, especially if you're pro-life. If you're pro-life and there's a certain demographic that is in mortal harm and mortal danger, shouldn't we be the ones saying, hey, we need to solve this problem? We need to address this? Nope. This is unbelievable to me.
From a libertarian perspective, why do you think that your ability to get health care, we have an employer-based healthcare system in this country. It's not how I would design it, but it's what we have.
Absolutely not how I would design it either.
Why should who you work for depend on what, determine what kind of treatment you can get?
I would not. I'm against forcing companies, employers from covering.
There it is. And you know what? He's right. And this is why when people talk to me about abortion and they say, you're trying to impose your morality on the people, and I say, of course I'm trying to impose my morality on the people. And this is another situation. I hope if you understand Medicare for all, or if you agree with me that employers should be required to provide this for their constituency, if you agree with that, that means you are forcing your morality onto that employer. That's what that is. You can't get away from it. If we're just going by the raw data of the Constitution and concepts like freedom, then there's no way, logically speaking, from a constitutional perspective, we could tell these employers, you have to do this. This is just something where the government needs to impose some serious morality here because, as the scripture says, the law is for the lawless. The law is for the lawless. You know what that means? What that means is the things that we should do are plain as day for us all to see if you operate from the prism of loving your neighbor. If I love my neighbor and I know that my neighbor is part of a subculture that's going to put his life in mortal peril in a post-COVID environment, I'm going to do my damnedest to make sure I do my little part to make sure that my neighbor's good. You should just do that naturally. But because we don't naturally love each other and some of us hate our neighbor, you got some people that hate their young, underdeveloped neighbor, and you have other people that hate their gay neighbor. Hate them. People say, no, I'm not hateful. I just disagree with the sin. I hate the sin. I love the sinner. Okay. The problem is that, nah, bro, this is an act of hate. You're saying I would rather you die than me help you because you're gay. You do gross things, so I would rather you die. And I'd rather you die an ignoble, slow, painful death, and I'd rather your family fucking watch you waste away, bro. You know, sometimes, man, this is like a punch in the stomach, man. Sometimes the shit is just so cruel and you're unprepared for the fucking cruelty. I gotta tell you, one of my best friends in the world, one of the, back in the day in Florida, the dude that taught me to play baseball, shout out to the big homie, Tristan, rest in peace to the homie. He told me he said, look, bro, I got a secret to tell you. He said, if I tell you this, you can't tell a soul. I said, I got you, my boy. What's going on? He said, somebody in our family is sick. So I guessed all the people in the family that were sick. And I didn't guess the right one. He said, it's my mom. I said, Patty? He's like, yeah, it's my mom. I said, okay, man, if she's sick, man, like maybe, I'll not come over. You come over here. She can get some rest. She'll be okay. He said, nah, bro. She's got AIDS. She's never going to be okay. So that was my introduction to AIDS. But I kept that secret because I'm a loyal friend. But Patty ended up telling my mom. And my mom banned me from seeing Tristan ever again or going over to his house. But thankfully, my stepfather intervened. I heard them arguing in the room. He said, Beverly, you can't do that. That boy loves that boy. He said, tell that boy to be careful, but he loves that boy. You can't do that. That's his best friend. You can't do that. And then he said, secondly, that boy needs our boy right now. So my mom showed us this big long video on HIV and told us not to have sex with girls. And she let me play with my best friend again. Rest in peace to Tristan. So I'm not outraged on this because I'm some good, nice, progressive, superhuman Christian. I have a real issue with this man because I saw firsthand the devastation of what AIDS does to a person and to a family. And that family's walking around with that death sentence. Now, again, there's a lot more hope now because we've advanced, but we haven't advanced that far. And once again, we are in a post-COVID environment. If you know anything about HIV, a lot of those folks end up dying of pneumonia. Because again, it's immunodeficient. It's an immunodeficiency virus. It destroys your T cells. You don't have any defenses because, you know, we've got T cells in our body because of random unguided events that just create these logically consistent machines that accomplish all sorts of things in our body. But anyway, HIV and AIDS destroys your immunity and your ability to fight off things like the common cold. So a lot of people do not die of AIDS. They die from the common cold or pneumonia. So then put COVID into that mix and think about how dangerous this is right now. Think. My brother Shane says, very complex issue. I don't know, bro. It's not very complex to me. It's not complex to me at all. But now people want to deploy Jesus to be the most the cruelest, heartless beasts of human beings of all time. I have no idea. You know, now you see all these so-called Republicans flipping on the topic of abortion. They're flipping. Why? Because they don't care about life. They never did. Why do you think I wasn't spiking the football when Roe v. Wade got reversed? I knew these people weren't pro-life, bro, because I talked to some of these people. These people ain't pro-life, man. Now you see them flipping on abortion, and now we're doing this. How in the world can you deny people life-saving medication as a matter of course and then call yourself pro-life? Those nasty gay people that you hate so much to the core of your heart were babies one time. Holy shit, we continue.
Medical expenses for things they oppose morally. To be clear, I do not oppose this morally.
Well,
I absolutely would include it in a health plan.
It's not morally, because that's a specific difference. The Constitution doesn't say you have a right to impose your morals on other people. It says you have a right to not be.
It's not imposing.
Again, my sister, the beautiful black sister. We are absolutely talking about imposing our morality onto these employers. They have a different moral compass than you on this topic. And what you want the government to do is force them to do the right thing. And I agree with you. I want them forced to do the right thing because, guys, all laws are based on that principle. Why do you think you have a speed limit, dear listener? That's the government forcing you to consider other people on the road. Now, if you have this careless, hey, every man for themselves, we're going to go on the Autobahn on the highway, that's cool. That could be your moral compass. But I want the government to enforce morality onto you and tell you, no, you can't do that. I've got 6, 7, 8, 9 kids. So I can't afford you joyriding on the highway at 90 miles an hour coming at me, bruh, in the wrong direction. So the government forces you to drive in such a way as to consider me and my kids and vice versa. So, Joy, if anybody is talking in this situation about imposing a morality onto something, it is us wanting to impose our, oddly enough, pro-life ethic onto these employers. We continue.
Not to have your religious beliefs impugned. And so many people are asking, what is the religious belief that is being undermined by prescribing HIV prevention medication? Where in the Bible does it say, thou shalt catch AIDS?
Again, I do not agree, from a moral religious perspective, I don't agree with this policy at all. I absolutely.
I do think that that's relevant, though. If you are claiming a religious exemption, then you have to show us that your religion has this as an issue. Oddly enough, I know a few things about the Bible. Here's what Jesus said in the New Testament. Here you go. Proclaim as you go, saying the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse lepers, cast out demons. You receive without paying, give without pay. Acquire no gold or silver or copper for your belt. What's interesting here, and you can check this, Jesus never asked anybody why they got sick before he healed them. You know, people knew what STDs were and STIs were in the ancient world. I know people think that these people were just dumb and they knew a lot of shit. Jesus never once asked anybody why they got sick and what the circumstances were. As a matter of fact, there's one time in John chapter 5 when there's an implication that the person did do something crazy to get himself in a bad situation, and Jesus healed him anyway. And after Jesus healed him, Jesus said to the man, "See, you are well again. Stop sinning unless something worse happened to you." So the pattern that we have in our religion as Jesus followers is if you see a sick person, you heal them, and money should not be a factor. Please note, he says heal the sick. Dear listener, there is no difference in the biblical New Testament between the word doctor and the word healer. It is the same Greek word. Therefore, when I supply you so that you can get access to a healer, I am fulfilling that command. Why do you think in all the cities in America you have a St. Mary's or a St. Joseph's? Who invented the hospital system in America, and what were their motives? So the command to heal the sick is part and parcel of your religion. And honestly, technically, you should be providing life-saving care at no cost, because it says you receive without paying, give without pay. So technically, if we were going to invoke our religion relative to this current situation, you should cover 100% of the care that your employers need, not to mention life-saving care. There is no way to justify this biblically. So I do think it is relevant that somebody brings up religion here. Furthermore, there are limits to what you can do in religion. I brought this up, people were bringing this up about abortion. Dear listener, if you're part of some horrible religion over there in Pakistan where this is practiced a lot, and you come over here, there is the horrible rash of child marriages happening in Pakistan and in Yemen. But you fly over here and you try to marry some 6-year-old girl, we're going to put the screws to you over here. You can invoke your religion all you want. We're going to impose you don't get to do that to 6-year-olds morality onto you, whether or not it's your religion. So those are two planks where this is clearly not a religious rights issue.
I'm not opposed to gay marriage or gay behavior or anything of the nature.
And see, this is also to me the problem with this libertarianism. It answers Cain's question, am I my brother's keeper, in the negative. And you don't need to be a Christian or religious person to know that does not promote human well-being. We continue.
But I'm allowed.
They aren't like sleeping with the 6-year-old, are they? Yes, they are, Delaney. Yes, they are. I love them people with my whole soul, but yes, they absolutely are. We continue.
To have a different view for someone else, if that's your view, just as I would not force you to bake a cake for a same-sex wedding or pay for an abortion. Baking
a cake for the same-sex wedding and paying for the abortion are not the same. Baking a cake for the same-sex wedding is not going to result in the death of the person wanting the cake. It's going to result in them jumping in a car and going down the street to Walmart or whatever. So that's not the same thing. Secondly, the government trying to force people to subsidize abortions is also not the same thing, because abortions take human lives. So if the argument is the government should not force me to subsidize abortions because I care about human lives, then it should also work in the inverse, that the government should be able to, quote, force you to provide life-saving care for your employees because it's at the bare minimum of what your employees deserve. See how that works? So neither one of those analogies work, in my view. We continue.
Oppose it, I would not make you pay for it, which this is a drug that you take to prevent you from contracting HIV if you then engage in risky sexual behavior.
Captivus, if you're saying that forcing an employer to subsidize abortions is mandating sin, I agree with you. But if you say that the government forcing an employer to provide life-saving medication for their employees is mandating sin, no, that's literally the opposite from a Christian worldview. We continue.
Again, I don't have any opposition whatsoever morally to that, but I don't think you should have to cover that if you do.
So it might be news to some people.
Now, he's making a good argument. He's making a constitutional argument. There's no way you can constitutionally say that I'm right. I know that. I don't care. I want it imposed on those people anyway. This is some of the most mean-spirited shit I've ever seen in my life, and I'm not very confident that this is going to get overturned.
That folks other than gay folks can get HIV. Many populations are disproportionate.
That is correct. Tristan's mom contracted HIV from her husband who cheated on her. So is her getting that mandating sin? What if there's a woman who is trying to stay, quote, faithful to her marriage, but she's got a man that's like running off on her or whatever, and so she decides she wants to buy that? Is that mandating sin? Because that would be helping this guy promote his sinful behavior, blah, 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 blah. Where do you draw the line? You know what's funny to me? I am almost certain that if a woman said, I'm in an abusive marriage where this guy is constantly cheating on me and fucking with my head and doing all types of shit, I need to use this to make sure that I don't catch HIV, I am certain those people would give her that. They would give it to her. They wouldn't say, oh, that's mandating the husband's sin because she's being a good Christian woman and staying in a fucked up, terrible situation, horrible marriage. Meanwhile, if she was the one that was cheating and says, hey, I want this because I don't want to catch HIV, they wouldn't do it. So you get to be the judge, jury, and execution, and you get to determine who gets to live and who gets to die. You get to invoke your religion to determine who gets to die. Where is that in the worship? I just showed you the passage. All we're told to do is heal the sick. We're never told to investigate the sick. We're never told to judge the sick. And Jesus, the only being on the planet that we believe had the right to judge the sick, did not judge the sick man, even though he was a really fucked up, horrible person, until after he healed him. Jesus said nothing to the man about his sinfulness when the man was in the throes of his sickness. Not once. All he said to the guy was, what do you want me to do for you? How can I help you? Jesus didn't talk to the guy about his sin until after he healed him. That's our religion.
Proportionally affected, including black women, by HIV.
In fact, in Africa, gay men are not even the majority of the people who get
And right
HIV.
here in America, at a certain point, the fastest growing population of people contracting HIV, this was some years ago, I'm not sure if it's still the case, was in fact black women. Many people are exposed to HIV in the context of a relationship or even
Correct.
a marriage because their partner has cheated.
Correct.
And so this idea that a prophylactic drug that can be used in many different contexts by many different people is being prohibited on the basis that there is this extremely attenuated connection with a quote-unquote gay lifestyle seems to me to be obviously a stretch and really speaks to how the religious exemptions can be exploited to basically punish populations and attack basically minority groups in the exact way that I would argue the Constitution quite explicitly prohibits.
Look, I have no, again, disagreement on what you've just said. I think it doesn't make any sense. That's not, if I was an employer, I would not have that policy. I wouldn't have.
See, I disagree with Brianna here. When she says a quote unquote lifestyle, no, there is one. There is one. And I think we should acknowledge the fact that there is one, which would then solidify the necessity for this happening. Again, there are anyway between 3.9 to 5% of American men consider themselves men who have sex with men, and here is the infection rate. They're getting an STI infection of HIV at 68%. They're 5% of the population and 68% of the new HIV cases. This is the latest data from the Center for Disease Control. So obviously that indicates there's a particular lifestyle attached to this subculture that is skyrocketing. I mean, again, if you adjusted that for scale, you're talking about tens of million, maybe 100 million people with HIV if you adjusted that for at a heterosexual scale. So obviously that is happening. And to me, her saying supposedly there's a lifestyle is actually injurious to the cause. If we know that there is a statistical and historical insane variation in the communication of this particular disease, and again, I have to reiterate, in a post-COVID context, that should solidify that those people in specific should be able to have that available to them for free, or at least massively covered, and that your religion, by its own estimation, cannot find any justification for treating people like this. That's how I'd argue. We continue.
Any of these policies?
But you could. And the courts have now,
according to the Religious Freedom Act. I think it's a straightforward application of the Religious Freedom Act, which imposes a least restrictive means. Look, employer-based health care is a really dumb system. I think we agree on that.
Medicare for all absolutely is a much more.
No, we need Medicare for all. Here's a perfect example.
You know, I don't even disagree that it would be improvement over employer-based health care, because we run into situations like this. The government can subsidize or just cover this drug in general. There are all sorts of other ways that don't force.
Okay, that's fair.
A private employer to cover something that they are religiously opposed to.
It does not bother you.
No, it bothers me. I'm just saying.
Let me get the question out there.
What he's saying is it's true that it's immoral, but he's a libertarian, and so, he's followed. Brianna has an internal moral compass that she wants to impose on these people, and he has the same moral compass in the same direction. But his legal philosophy is such that the only imposition you can garner is from the sacred pages of the Constitution. I don't see how that's different from guiding your life by the dictates of the Bible. In all three cases, we're using some form of imposed morality onto people, or an imposition of a certain kind of lifestyle onto people. And 2 out of the 3 of them are based on documents that we did not craft, that were crafted by old dead people. Robbie's got the Constitution, I've got the Bible, and Brianna has her own emotional feelings about this. So part of this discussion is interesting because it really challenges this concept of the separation of church and state, or this concept that you cannot impose morality onto people. I believe both are almost impossible.
I don't know where you get your insurance. I don't know if you get it from the Hill or private insurance.
No, I get it from my other employers.
Reason.
No, not even true. I get it from my wife, her employment with the federal government. So there you go.
What a tangled web our insurance system is. Okay, so whoever...
I have so many employers.
See, Robbie can laugh about this because he's not part of that community, and he's good. Like, this is one of the things that happens. It's like, you get out of touch. You get out of touch with what struggling people are dealing with. There's a lot of people out here grinding and working, man, that can't afford can't afford to contract HIV, bro. You hear what I'm saying to you? We had a pandemic. People were showing up to work, literally risking their lives because they couldn't take that time off, bro. So this is one of the things that really gets me, is like, there's always this like lightheartedness about shit that you don't have to deal with, but this is some really fucked up shit. This is really horrible.
Keep them straight at this point.
So if your wife's employer decided that they don't believe, because let's say they're Scientologists,
Right.
they don't believe in mental health drugs, if they decided that they didn't believe in penicillin because they're one of these, free-range folks that exist, they could decide based on their own religious beliefs that nobody can measure, nobody can test, nobody can prove. It's just belief that you and your family doesn't get protection.
Seems like a bad organization to work for.
It seems like a bad way to run the country.
I mean, this is a bad system, but
in the absence of any real movement, frankly, on the issue of universal health care, a single-payer healthcare system, frankly, even from the progressives in Congress who are no longer talking about this issue, much to the chagrin of many people in the Bernie movement, it seems like an enormous violation of people's rights to tell them that they cannot potentially get life-saving health care if their employer decides on a whim to target them and their community.
Philosophically, the violation of rights is imposing or forcing the person providing the thing to do something they don't want to provide.
He's right. He's right. He's right. Here's how I look at it. You do not have the right to life-saving medications as an employee, but you do have the obligation to provide it as an employer. Did you hear what I just said? I'll say that again. I don't believe that you have the right to having that medication as an employee, but I do believe you have the obligation to provide it as an employer. There is a difference. There's a big difference. But again, this libertarian stuff, he's got her dead to rights, and I believe that this court is going to find, not just because it's in Texas, but if you just go by the letter of the law of this religious document called the Constitution of the United States of America, and don't tell me it's not a religious document when it's literally deciding life and death. Anything that the Bible decides and calls plays on, the Constitution does for libertarians. So I'm sorry, but he's got her over a barrel here, and these people are going to win. But it's absolutely disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
Healthcare, if their employer decides on a whim to target them and their community.
Philosophically, the violation of rights is imposing or forcing the person providing the thing to do something they don't want to provide.
If in the case of a cake where someone has to literally use their labor and draw designs that might not be in accordance with their own belief system, I frankly agree. I think a lot of folks, obviously, and kind of instinctively,
I'm glad to hear you say that.
who are liberal, sided with the gay couple in that cake instance, but I always had a really hard time figuring out what would happen. Like, how can you make it so that a gay couple gets to have access to a wedding cake, but not as a cake maker, I'm not forced to draw a swastika or a Confederate flag or something on a cake that I would object to.
Exactly.
And I do think that there's a difference between saying, I'm not going to serve you because you're gay, versus I'm not going to make a cake that says something about homosexuality or validates.
Again, I have always been against forced integration. I was against forced racial integration. I'd have never sent my black daughter to them white schools like that Ruby's parents did. I don't even do it today. It's one of the main reasons I homeschool. I'm not sending my black kids to no public institution that wasn't designed for them. However, that's not the same thing as people's lives being at risk. Like, again, If you don't want to serve the cake, I'm okay, fine. Tell them I can't do this thing with the cake. Okay, go to Walmart. Okay, problem solved. That's not the same thing as this guy is dirt poor, and if he doesn't get this insurance, he's living in such a way that he's almost guaranteed to get this virus. That's the issue. They're not the same. But this is one of the reasons why you should not support legislation like forcing the cake, because what ends up happening is it gins up all this resentment to where now shit like this happens. You need to save your bullets for when shit really needs to pop off, and this is the time when it needs to pop off. I would have much rather get my LGBT friends the fucking medication that they need versus the fucking birthday cake from the Christian distributor who hates them anyway.
In a way that is against my beliefs. But I would argue that that is what's happening here. Constructively, these people have decided that the people who are taking PrEP are gay, and that is why they don't want
Correct.
to fulfill those prescriptions or pay for
Correct.
those prescriptions.
That's
Even though
exactly
that is
what they're
not even
doing.
True, and even and that's kind of like exposes the extent to which this isn't about religion in the least, because it is a drug that is taken and available.
Well, it's in complete contradiction to our religion. I showed you everybody the text. This is not me being emotional, although I'm a bit emotional about this topic. I showed everybody the text. Jesus told us to heal people. He never once told us to ask people how they got sick. He just told us to heal them. For free. We continue.
To anybody to get a sexually transmitted disease, which can be caught by anybody in any context, including in the context of a religious marriage.
The justification,
as well as shearing needles. Okay? And there's a giant fentanyl thing happening right now. You know, this is funny. Like one of our governors, you know, there's this thing called Narcan, and a couple years ago, right before COVID hit, the opioid crisis was killing us. Our folks were just dropping like flies. We had a downtown ministry. Shit was crazy. And our governor shot down a proposal to arm every officer with a Narcan pen. You know, Narcan is when these people OD, you jam it in there. If you get it in time, usually you can bring them back literally from the dead. I had one of our street folks got to watch his girlfriend die of an OD because the cops had jammed him up and she was ODing in the car and they wouldn't let him get to the car. So then he said, I got the Narcan in my pocket. Just take it out of my pocket. They wouldn't do it. They let that girl die right in front of them when they had a Narcan pen there. Then our governor said, no, we're not going to outfit officers with Narcan pens. And do you know what the logic was? Same logic. It's going to promote opioid ODs. So we won't do it. No. Because when you looked down at the comment section, everybody was like, that's right, natural selection. Yeah. Let's just dehumanize these people, man. Let's just You're a drug addict, man. You're worth something lower than me. So if these chemicals take you out, bro, cool. We have no obligation to spend the extra money so that our police officers can have something packed with you to save their life. No, we just want to arm our police officers with weapons so they can shoot unarmed people if they're afraid. But we're not going to arm our police officers with Narcan pens. No, that's going to encourage the wrong kind of people to keep living. See, drug addicts in this town, especially folks stuck on opioids, they're completely dehumanized. We also have babies that are completely dehumanized. And now we've got my team, the evangelicals, completely dehumanizing these LGBT people. Man, fuck those gay people. Let them die, slow, painful death of AIDS. Let a face get covered with lesions, all type of shit. Let their mother bury them. Man, you're trying to tell me that we don't have a problem with hatred and evangelicalism? Now notice, this is my team. I'm not going to separate myself from evangelicalism. This is my team. This is us. This is who we are currently. We're the bad guys currently. Just if you didn't know, we're the bad guys.
It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I'm not even a particularly religious person, but I respect their right to hold beliefs that don't make any sense to me. And this could also be applied beyond this situation to covering.
No, I don't respect your right to do that because you don't have the right to have that kind of belief. If that belief manifests to actual material harm in this world. If you're causing real, absolute, demonstrable material harm, then no, I don't respect the belief that dictated that action. Hell no.
Gender-affirming hysterectomies, abortions, other things, and all those cases, I would say you should not be compelled to pay for something you're morally, religiously opposed to. I would extend that as broadly as possible through all of society because I believe in voluntary associations and voluntary trade-based relationships. If you don't work for...
Yeah, see, this is this consent-based society nonsense, which only focuses on people's rights and has no focus on people's duties. But you have to focus on duties. Duties always have to come first because if you don't start with duties, then you cannot secure rights. I have a duty to protect your life. Why? Because if I don't do my duty, then you cannot exercise any other right if you're dead. So duty to protect life must always, always, always be the fundamental moral compass and premise, because if you care about rights and liberty, those things cannot be expressed in America when you're dead. So once you're alive, society's entire goal is to keep you alive. We have hospitals, we have police departments, in theory, etc., because if you're dead, you don't get to exercise any other rights. Do you see the logic? But if there's a group of people you hate, then you kill a bunch of birds with a bunch of stones. Because now, if all these gay people start dropping, then we don't have to worry about pesky things like housing protections, marriage protections, employee. We don't have to worry about any of that shit because those motherfuckers are just dropping like flies. They're going to just be happy to make it home alive. This is the hellscape that we are creating as evangelicals in this country relative to this issue. Holy shit.
You should work for, again, our employer-based healthcare system is very bad, but you should, and if it is a vital government interest to provide this drug, and maybe it is, there are, according to the law, the government has to use the least restrictive means possible to achieve this end if it conflicts with the religious objection. So you could just subsidize, you could do something else. You don't have to compel someone.
Yeah, but you can also use common sense. What should the standard be for Mahmoud, who just came from Yemen, who believes it's within his Sharia to marry a fucking 6-year-old? Who determines what are the extra hoops that our country has to go through to say, hell no, you can't do that. Hell no, you cannot cut off your daughter's clitoris, you fucking weirdo. No, we're not going to sanction that action. Yeah. This is in that category. You realize that. This is in that category. It's at that level.
To offer it, they're religiously opposed to it.
I think that this decision should be a rallying cry for everyone who has been arguing so vociferously over the past few years for Medicare for all.
Thank you.
As much as there is hand-wringing about the oppressiveness of the state
Jeez.
and how the state can dictate your behavior and become authoritarian, which is obviously something that everybody should guard for, the incredible, bigoted overreach that these courts have been facilitating, that get between individuals and their doctor and what should be one of the most private and sacred relationships that we have in this country, is really unconscionable. And the idea that the Bible, which I promise you says nothing about PrEP or HIV,
agreed.
and yet we have all of
Agreed.
these conversations about institution.
Well, it actually did, because Jesus said, heal the lepers. Heal the lepers. And you know who the modern day lepers are, obviously. Cleanse the lepers. You know what's funny? Is that there was an emotional disgust toward lepers at the time of Jesus' time period. But there's an obvious evolutionary benefit to that, which disgust gives us the mechanism to avoid certain things and avoid exposure to disease, etc., etc. These skin diseases were highly contagious. People didn't want to touch them. So these people would be separated from their families and they'd go live in a leper colony. Nobody would touch them. Here he says, heal the sick, raise the dead. And he specifically says, cleanse lepers, cleanse them. You know why? Because in order to do that, you had to touch them. You know, the Bible is a supernatural book. There's a lot of times people got healed with just a word. Or they got healed by dipping in the Jordan for a couple, whatever. There's a lot of long distance healing. But when Jesus talked about lepers, he said, cleanse them. Give them a bath. Touch them. Touch the untouchable. That's our team. That's our religion. And there isn't one group of people that it's being treated like lepers in this country any more than little babies in the womb on the left side and gay people on my side. Those are the lepers of our modern day. People, we hate these people. You hate these people. You hate these lepers. You resent them. And it became a thing sociologically. Read up in Second Temple Judaism. People began to dislike the lepers. And they began to say, you did something wrong. You did something and we don't know what you did, but you did something. Why? Because we want to continue to find an emotional reason to justify our societal abandonment of you. So now, because you're greedy and judgmental, you want these people afflicted with this disease so that you can justify your disgust and your hatred of gay people and your dehumanization of beautiful people created in the image and likeness of God. This shit is unfathomably cruel to me. And to use Christ's name to justify this bullshit, holy smokes.
Originalism and textualism, and how, we just had in the Dobbs decision, Alito saying that you have to be able to find precedent for these kinds of rules back in time. This religious exemption, which was supposed to be about allowing individuals to be free from having the government tell them.
Yes, because it's a person's choice to die and an unborn's life is taken from them without say or choice. No, it is not the gay person's choice to die. The gay person is trying to take the fucking prophylactic so that they don't die. There's a difference between engaging in a practice that got you a fatal disease than saying that you want to die. The very fact that they're suing for life-saving medication, TD, means they didn't want to die.
What to do has now been weaponized as a tool to allow religious institutions to exert their religious will on their employers, which is a perverse bastardization of what the founding fathers originally intended.
As President Bill Clinton said when he signed this law, the Religious Freedom Act, the government should be held to a very high level of proof before it interferes with someone's free exercise of religion. We can never be too vigilant in this work.
Honestly, Robbie, I've been to law school. I've taken a class on race, religion, and law, and when you look at the case law, the government frequently decides that people's religious liberties are not more important than the government interest of, preventing HIV pandemic from spreading and all of the health implications of that. Regularly, people their heads are shaved when they join the military or when they go into prison, despite their religious beliefs. People's Social Security benefits are denied because they're Native Americans.
Why don't support any of those things?
Who smoke peyote as part of their religious training. The courts are all over the place and are very happy to infringe on people's religious rights a million and one times, and it always comes down to whether.
Here's poor Ben. I love Ben. Ben said the following: I find it absolutely absurd that you're upset at them using this reasoning to do this. They use the same argument to overturn Roe v. Wade, but you were fine with it then, hypocrite. No. Ben, Roe v. Wade was an illegitimate Supreme Court decision. Even Ruth Bader Ginsburg knew that. Everybody knew that. Any first-year law student could tell you the verbiage and the argumentation and the legal logic that was used was completely flawed. There is no constitutional amendment that says anything about employers giving or taking away medication from their constituency. Number two, the logic that is being employed here is, yes, very similar to Roe's logic, but not in the right direction for you, my friend, because the logic that these Christians are applying are twofold. One, they dehumanize the people that they want to see die, namely homosexuals. Number two, they have a financial stake in not providing that life-saving medication because it keeps their premiums lower. Ben, so there's a financial stake and there's an act of dehumanization in the subculture, which is what drives abortion 99% of the time. You already know that. So the same logic that I'm using to say, no, children are more important than capital, and that children are valuable even though they can't add anything to society right now, is literally the exact same syllogism I'm using, which is to say, if people make mistakes with their sexuality, we do not get to punish them with the death penalty. Because we're told to heal the sick. Because gay people are still human beings created in the image and likeness of God, and they're just as equal to us and deserve all this. We have the same obligations to gay people as we have to anybody else as Christians. So it's literally the same syllogism on both sides, Ben. Thank you for playing. We continue.
They think one religion is a real religion or a fake religion, and I think that is exactly the kind of establishment of religion. The government picking and choosing which religions it wants to protect, and it has an interest in not upsetting. That is exactly the kind of establishment the Establishment Clause is trying to prevent. You and I would probably agree.
I don't think you can make the argument that this is a form of establishing a religion, because especially those evangelicals will tell you, even if you stopped homosexual behavior, that doesn't mean you've adopted Christianity. So I don't think you can argue. I think that that's a reach that she can say that. But again, I just think if you go to the 14th Amendment, look, like I said, I don't think there's a very constitutional argument for this, and I don't care. We should impose this on them because it's the right thing to do. We continue.
In a lot of those cases, the Sikh Muslims having to remove their garb in schools, or carry knives. That was an issue.
The Sikh Muslims. Sikhs are one religion. Muslims are another religion. And most of the time that they've been around, they've been at war with each other and killed each other in bunches. As a matter of fact, it's one of the reasons why all my Singhi Sikh friends have knives. And obviously, you cannot carry a knife in this current context. I don't care what your religion is. So there are all types of limitations to the, quote, freedom of religion in practice.
Peyote, of course. All of these things are things I would probably agree with you on. But like in those cases, I also see the argument for why this is a violation of someone's religious rights. But we disagree again today.
Well, another reason to continue to support and fight for Medicare for all, to actually have a freedom of choice and liberty, personal liberty issue. That's really what's at stake right now, as we have conservatives passing these rights increasingly across the country to protect the right to commune freely with your doctor. That's what's on the stake. More rising for you after this.
I don't feel very confident about this at all, guys, to be honest with you. This shit is the cruelty that human beings are capable of is mind-boggling to me. But as we've shown, it's nowhere in the worship that we can do this to our neighbor. But this is what happens when you dehumanize people. When you walk around and feel like you're better than people, this is what happens. You create really cruel, harsh, unfeeling, exacting, petty, small societies where you get to literally decide who lives or dies because you're in a different place, because you've been able to acquire more material than your neighbor. All right. Do your best, guys. Love your neighbor. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Middle America, we are the media. Till next time, guys.